Greetings from the now unbelievably well-lit former Shadow Realm. You join me and my mug, Bernard, as we finally get round to filming episode 2 of me reviewing your drumming. It's only taken a whopping 6 months, but I've been doing that thing that's also known as being busy. But now we're finally back. I'm going to take the videos you lovely lot have submitted and I'm going to review your playing. I'm going to give you my 2 cents, my advice on what you can move on to and do next. One quick note before we start. My name is Emma, also known as Sounds Like Emma, also known as the face of Love to Learn Drums. Hi, I am a professional drummer. I do it for a living. So hopefully I have some valuable advice to give when it comes to hitting said drums. Okay, now we can get into it. Okay, first up we have John. He's from England, and he's been playing 20 plus years. It's almost as long as I've been alive. And he wants help with playing double bass drum. Oh dear, this could be a bad start, seeing as I don't really class myself as someone who plays double pedal, but I will see what I can do. Let's have a look. You can tell this guy's been playing 20 years because I think there's a certain amount of fluidity that comes with it, or there's a certain amount of fluidity that comes from having muscle memory that's lasted for 20 years. But let us continue. We love a crash on too. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I am not the person to talk to when it comes to double pedal. All I can really advise is exactly the same advice I'd give to someone trying to develop their foot in general and apply it to the left, like things like having really solid timing, using a metronome, making sure you're using the correct parts of your feet. But I know it's a completely different beast when you're dealing with double pedal. So unfortunately, I'm not the one to talk to you about that, but I would like to do some videos on it, talking to someone who does. So stay tuned for that. I want to make that happen. One thing I would say I notice about your playing, John, is that you kind of seem to stay within the single stroke realm. So we're not really venturing out into rudiments, and that might be something that will kind of make things a bit more interesting for you if you're starting to get a little bit bored of what you're doing. So let me demonstrate. Seeing as there's a drum kit here, how convenient. Whoa. So he's playing a song that seems unbelievably familiar, and I can't think of what it's actually called right now, but the vibe is thus. That kind of thing, and a lot of his fills are kind of, you know, that kind of thing. In fact, let me change to a more appropriate drum kit. This is rock, after all, kind of, sort of, I guess. Basically, John is staying within right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. That kind of thing. I'd start to venture out into things like paradiddles, maybe just some doubles, so like a little drag into fills, like left, left, and then right. So you get a fill that sounds like this, and you can start to drag, double left, into it. Whoa, what just happened there? Yeah, this is where the next bit of magic is. But what I did there was kind of a combination of paradiddles, kind of linear stickings, maybe a 6-stroke, genuinely can't remember, it just kind of came out of my hands, and this is my point about comfortable muscle memory. Yeah, whatever that was. Yeah, what was that? Okay, so 6-stroke, just one. Right, left, right, right, paradiddle, and then left, left, so paradiddle, diddle. Kick, right, left. Yeah. So you can see instantly there, that's a bit more interesting than that doesn't necessarily mean it's less effective. And this is another thing to bear in mind. I could waffle on about this all day. I feel like this video is going to be a mile long, but hey, here we are. I'll summarize by basically saying it's one thing to do flashy fills like I just demonstrated there, but sometimes single strokes are the way to go. So it's not always a one size fits all. So I guess all that advice I just gave was completely obsolete. Sorry. Should we move on? Let's move on. All right, next up, we've got Beb from the Philippines, and he's playing about 6 or 7 years. And what does he want help on? Left hand and foot. And time to play. So I don't know if he means making time to play or if he means holding time better. We shall find out. Let's find out. Okay, first of all, I'm very impressed. I know 6 or 7 years is quite a long time to play, but even with that, the control I can see around the kit is really, really good. And also he's doing something that I don't know how to do, which is traditional grip. How exciting. Honestly, those open hi-hats have really good control. It is a bit of a minefield with electric kits because it depends on how they feel, which determines how easy it is to play them. He seems like he's got a really quite nice light touch with everything, which is great, to be honest. A lot of people end up playing a bit too hard on electric kits. And he's playing something rhythmically, timing-wise, very advanced, to be honest. It's quite a difficult thing to try and navigate. I think the thing that might be letting him down a little bit is the fact that he's probably listening to the track out loud and the drums as well. I always try and recommend to people to make sure you've got some way of having track or music in your ears, not too loud, obviously, be careful about that, just because it makes hearing everything so much clearer. But anyway, let's watch some more. Whoa, did you catch that? Because I certainly did. Hello, Mr. Metric Modulation. Let's go. I see what you're going for there. How do I begin to explain metric modulation? How much time have we got? Emma might do this in post. In fact, oh my God, hi, it's Emma in post. You're so welcome.
Modulation is a rhythmic device in which new tempo is established by reinterpretation. God, this is boring. Bin this off.
Basically, for us drummers, metric modulation is our only magic trick that we can pull. We can give the illusion of a piece of music speeding up or slowing down while everything else remains the same. Whoa, I know. Allow me to explain. So let's take an 8th note groove. So you've got 8th notes on the hi-hat, bass drum 1 and 3, snare drum 2 and 4. Nothing too complicated. Now, if you play those notes in exactly the same order, but instead of playing them as 8th notes, you play them as, let's say, triplets, all of a sudden you get something like this. So, you have the sound of an 8th note groove, and if you played it all by itself, it would just sound like an 8th note groove. But if you then put a pulse for context in, it sounds absolutely wild. Put this underneath some other music and it just sounds crazy, but it does resolve and it is technically correct, thus giving the impression of a piece of music slowing down or speeding up depending on what subdivision you change to. Trying to learn how to do this can take quite a lot of time, and more so quite a lot of swearing, but it's definitely worth a go. Oh, oh yeah, dude. I love that the first two of these have been like, actually, I can't give advice on this because I don't use these techniques. But it would be unwise of me to try and advise you, especially as you're using traditional grip, for me to try and advise you on how to get a better left hand. It looks pretty good to me from what I can see. I haven't seen you doing any doubles or anything, so that's kind of where the magic happens. Left foot wise, I mean, when you're doing these open kind of short open hi-hats, everything seems perfectly fine. But maybe just working on some stuff with some stepped hi-hats. Or maybe choosing one of these really complicated sections, just that loop of the kind of, the displaced bit you did, the metric modulation bit, and trying to solo over that. Ooh, gross. Yeah, just because it means you really have to get comfortable with everything where it's kind of sitting. Especially, this is how I tell people to get better with odd time signatures, is literally sit with a metronome yelling that odd time at you, and you just sit with it until it starts to feel a little bit easier, a little bit more comfortable. And this comes around to your left foot, so you want to do that, but also maintain a left foot, like a stepped, either quarter note or maybe even eighth note, whatever feels kind of more appropriate. That's what I do to kind of step things up a little bit, quite literally. Step. Next, Katerina from Russia, only been playing 4 months, and the single piece that she has given me in terms of information is can't play fast. Let's be the judge of that, shall we? Oh, she's so sweet. I mean, for 4 months, doing good. Classic. Oh, I love the little smiles in between. Very cute. Okay, so speed is something that a lot of people would just say comes with time, and that is true. Not denying it. But there are a couple of technical things. When you're so early on in the game, speed is not your friend, and honestly it shouldn't be. It should be about just getting basic technique down and getting comfortable behind the kit. I'll give you one thing when it comes to grooves in terms of getting those faster, but before we get to that bit, one piece of advice I'd give you: everything sounds great while you're playing. I'd try and get rid of that gap when you stop playing. So once you've done groove, fill, and then stop, we want to kind of remove that as much as possible. We want to get used to playing fills and then going back into the groove again straight away. Should I demonstrate? I'm going to demonstrate. So instead of thinking real hard, we want to get rid of that gap, because in the real world, that's not going to work very well if you're playing a gig. So I'd suggest making sure you can get rid of that gap a little bit, even if it means actually playing slower, so you can think about what you need to do ahead of time. Oh, and just in terms of generally playing a bit faster, grooves, you want to be using the 2-part hi-hat motion. And I may have said about this in the previous video, but I'm just going to give a quick overview here. I've talked about it in loads of videos. So our eighth notes, a lot of us choose one surface to play them on. And that's fine for a while, but if you want to get any speed whatsoever, it doesn't really work very well. So what we do is we break it into 2 motions. So we have part 1 is where you hit the hi-hat on the edge with the shoulder of the stick. And then when we lift up for the and, we lift from the wrist, as if there's like a hairband. And you notice that the tip of the stick is now in position to just tap on the top. So you get 1, 2, 1, and 2, and 3. And a lot of people will try and make this into 1, 2. There'll be elbow involved. We don't want that. Kind of sounds a bit like an indicator. And you want to make sure that second part is just part of a nice flow that gets you back to flipping the stick back and doing it all again. So fluidity, big word, I know, especially for me, it's early. But that's how you unlock that hi-hat speed. It's just then a case of making sure everything syncs up nicely. So you've then got to slow down again to then speed up. But isn't that all things, really? Anyway, I hope that helps. Let's go on to the next one. Mohit from India has been playing 15 years and wants help with fills. I'm going to warn you now, if you're prone to seizures, just skip to the next one because this guy's got some crazy lying going on. It's a lot of simples. Yeah, dude. He seems like the type of guy who's been playing a while. Super solid. It's a little hard to see from here, but he might be using what I call sticky sticks, where, you know, when you hit the drum and it stays on said drum. For beginners, I don't advise this because it's a poor habit to get into, but it can be used as a stylistic thing. It's harder to hear it. In fact, you can't hear it on electric kits. It's only on acoustic kits. You'll notice this. But you can just get a slightly different, shorter, snappier sound out of the snare drum if you do that. I'm not sure if that's what he's doing here because of the angle, but good to note either way. I mean, looks pretty good to me. I can see what he means about fills, everything. I mean, everything is perfectly good, just to clarify. But if you're looking for some more exciting fills in general, much like I said with, was it John, first guy? It's about mixing subdivisions. So what I mean is 8th notes, 16th notes, and then to triplets. Combining those can be useful. Adding some rudiments into things doesn't necessarily need to be like the whole body of the fill, just like things like dragging into it, so a double left leading into fills. Maybe even like a little like kick drum, like brrr, like a little, you can do a drag basically with a bass drum. I can't say that and then not demonstrate. Like that. Bass, bass, whatever else you're doing. You know. Stuff like that. How am I achieving this? I personally use heel toe technique, and if you want to know more about bass drum technique, just look at the video I've already done about bass drum technique, because I don't have a camera down there to show you, and honestly I don't think you want to see that right now. Maybe a few of you do. Ew. But either way, I'm just using those two bass drums the same as you'd use a little drag into a fill. The one thing I didn't say in the previous ask about fills was the use of accents. So yes, you can go down the rudiments route if you want to, but an easier potentially change you can make is quite simply using accents. If you're going to stick to single strokes and you know it, what you can do is utilize accents a little bit more, because if I didn't have any accents, any dynamics, any volume changes in my fills, it would all be a little bit flat, a little bit one-dimensional. So what you want to do is be able to have a row of 16th notes or just single strokes, but to be able to choose where you put those accents to be able to express some sort of rhythm through it. But how does one achieve such dexterity, Emma? Let me tell you, there's one exercise you need. There's literally one. So again, I may have explained this in the last episode, but it bears repeating. 16th notes, 1 E and A. Right, left, right, left. You're going to accent the first one, so the first right. 1, 2, 3 E and A, 4 E and A. Notice how I come up for that accent, and everything else is staying low, like this. Barely a movement. So everything stays nice and low except that accent. And just get used to that first of all. It'll make counting single strokes a lot easier. But then you want to move through, so then you're counting still the same, but then you're accenting the E. So 1 E, 2 E, 3 E, 4E. And the and, 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a. And then the 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a, 1. All any rhythm is a combination of those. 1, and. It's all the same stuff. So if you've got those 4 accent placements, you're sorted. That's literally all you need. One more piece of advice before I move on. Put a foot with that. So make sure you're holding time with a foot or both feet or doing walking feet, whatever you prefer, just so you get that extra level of coordination going on. Okay, next up we've got J-Lo from the Philippines, who's been playing 30 plus years. And it's a classic case of the left hand not cooperating the same way as the right does. So let's have a look, shall we? Sounding pretty solid to me. What's he doing there? So I'm going to tell you how he's playing that because it is a really cool groove. I'm going to play it slightly differently, I think, to what he's doing, but let's do it anyway. So, foundationally, you've got a 4 to the floor with 2 and 4 on the snare drum. 1, 2, 3, 4. Only thing you've got to do is move that left hand up to get your and. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And could be a little bit awkward if you've never done it before, but still pretty groovy. 2, 3, 4. So your hi-hats will fall in between your bass drums. Snare drum will fall with the bass drum. Now all you've got to do, I say all you've got to do, is open the hi-hat as you're doing that and close it with your bass drum foot. So you'll get 1, open, and then everything comes down. So snare drum, hi-hat, foot, and bass drum foot together. So 1 and 2 and 3. Ooh. Now if that isn't enough, we're now also going to have your right hand on a ride cymbal playing 8th note. So if you actually ignored all the hi-hat stuff we're doing, you just have a 4 to the floor. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. It's just that movement up here that's a little bit funky. Stick it all together. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. It sounds a bit dry right now. Once you get up to speed, pretty funky. Now, in terms of advice I have for left hand stuff, because as I mentioned, this is literally everybody's problem. Everyone, unless you've actively sorted it out, has this issue. And what it is, quite simply, is that your left hand is doing a really good job at trying to keep up with the right, but said good job means that it's making some compromises. So you've got way more dexterous a right hand if you're leading with your right hand, which means all these motions, fine motor control that we require to get things like doubles, are much easier. And we've spent much more time writing and becoming more dexterous with said hand. But the left is compensating because it can't do that unless you develop it. So it's this muscle group in here that you want to develop. And yes, you can use this exercise to just be aware of what muscle group we're talking about. But what your left hand will do is use more wrist to try and compensate. So you end up with kind of like a this. One of them, right? So one of the exercises I like to use to just develop the right muscle group for things and get used to having the left hand open up like we need it to be able to get the height we need to be able to play well. You just drop the stick. So we go from a neutral position, which is just hovering above the snare drum, making little pizza slides in the middle. couple fingers height off the drum. And we lift, first of all, with the right, so you have a reference. Notice how I've just completely dropped that. You want that to ring, so to speak, for as long as humanly possible. Because that means your hand is as open as it can be without losing, the stick. You don't want the stick to be moving about too much. So you can do this without the use of your 3 fingers. It's just the index finger and the thumb. This helps you develop a bit more control in that area. See if it's the same between hands, do it at the same time. But once you've got that looseness, then you can catch it after the second note. So again, starting in the right, you do 1 drop, notice how it comes up. And when it comes down for that second one, that's when you close your fingers. So it's already on its way down, you're just kind of helping it with your fingers. And try and stay nice and kind of level to where you are when you start. Most people go like this, and then they go, okay, I'm coming up to do a hit, and then we end up all the way up here. Get this down in the right, and then get it down in the left, and compare the two. So this is the magic part. You will see or observe that your fingers do different things. They will react very differently. And by comparing the two, doing the same action, even freezing after each one, even mine aren't even, right? But it really helps just refine, because you have that right hand as reference, what's going on. I use that to try and just get a little bit of my brain in my left hand. And then you can move on to more stamina-based stuff. So things like 8th notes over here, 16th notes, bouncing. Just like that. This is not easy to clarify. It's worth working up to. So you can go 8th notes, 3 and 4 E and F, for example. Or just a row of 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4 E and. Stuff like that. I have a whole course on this, by the way. It is Left Hand Bootcamp, or if you want just the ebook, it's the Equalizer. I'm pretty sure that is on our website, so if you want to check that out, you can. But anyway, there we have it. Thank you so much for submitting your videos. I will be categorically doing more of these videos and releasing them sooner rather than later, because there are a ton of them. Hopefully this advice has helped you just a little bit, and if you want to submit your own, then you can. The link is down just below. Other than that, have a fantastic day. Big love. Mwah.